Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is our weekly webinar, and this is a subject matter that if you're not concerned, interested in it, or aware of it, then you're missing out, especially in how things have become so digital since the pandemic started a year ago, if you can believe that. But we're talking today about search engine optimization, and there's a lot that you need to be aware of and some changes that are coming down the pike. And so that's the subject today. I'm going to introduce our guests in just a second, but I want to let you in on a couple of things, a little bit of house cleaning here first and foremost. You can always find a recording of this webinar and our others at myhfa.org. We have a library there of incredible conversations we've had with dozens of takeaways in each of them. And I really want to encourage you to go there, and you will, of course, by the end of this hour, have a number of more takeaways to carry with you. And while talking about takeaways, you'll notice on the right-hand side of your screen, there are a couple of handouts we have. One is called The Next Steps in Search. The other one is about SEO trends. Feel free to download those. And also on that right side of the screen, if you have questions that you want to have answered, we'll do our best. Please write them down. But let's not waste any more time. Let me get right to it here. Got a couple of great guests today that I want to introduce. Ken Widger is joining us from Charlotte. He's with MicroD. He's the Senior Marketing Program Manager for MicroD. Ken, thank you. It's good to see you again. And I wish it was in person, but what can I tell you? And Kate Gallagher joins us. She's Vice President of Client Services for Phelps Digital. I want to point out both of these entities are wonderful partners here at HFA, and we appreciate you bringing your expertise to the table today. Now, SEO is an elephant, so we're going to take this a bite at a time. So I want to give everybody that's with us today some expectations here. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about SEO as how it can be used to drive people into your store. Then we're going to talk about the increase in web traffic, lead optimization, and then, very importantly, we're going to end with some changes that are coming to the Google algorithm that will impact what you need to do in order to really optimize your search engine visibility. And by the way, a little bit of history here. The first algorithm, Google algorithm, was 1998. So for 23 years, the two guys that came up with this algorithm, which became known as PageRank, are also the founders of Google. So Google was founded on this principle back in 1998. So 23 years and lots of changes going on. But let's get this conversation started. Ken, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
First of all, let's just talk before we get into these specifics, just really briefly. How has the importance of SEO changed in the last 12 months?
I'll be terse. I'll try. So as showrooms closed down, right? Everybody decided that they needed to put more emphasis onto their website presence, right? The website became their showroom, albeit digital. There was the retailers raced. There was a race to get online and to improve that experience and to get ranked and everything else. So most certainly the need for it, for SEO and to have better ranking and better visibility, better exposure, has increased, 10 times. And people shifted budgets from print and TV and things that would normally drive showroom traffic over to digital. So that was a big deal. There's also been, we talked about this probably in the last 3-4 months with folks, that a big shift on the local SEO side. Shoppers are now becoming much more comfortable shopping online, but they still want to do it locally. And they want, and also all the variables like they buy online or pick it up in store, things like that. And so even though, don't ignore the local side of it, and showing up in that map section is a big deal.
Well, and Kate, I'll let you kind of jump in right there too. And this is really the first thing we want to tackle. Let's talk about that importance first of all, because as Ken said, things are opening up more and more. People are becoming more comfortable, but we know that while they start their search, online, most of the transacting is still happening in stores. So talk a little bit about that, what local SEO really is, and about how that really helps to drive people to your store.
Yeah, I think the simplest way to put it is to make sure that you have a presence when people are trying to find something, quote unquote, near me. I think that the most common thing, and probably the most important thing when it comes to local SEO, is your Google My Business listing and showing up on Google Maps. And those two things are really intertwined. If you optimize Google My Business, you will show well on Google Maps. So I think that most businesses probably have this set up. If you don't, it's probably something you might want to look into today. There are definitely some features within Google My Business that are specifically really important to focus on. Make sure that you have your phone number, your address, and all of the location and contact information consistent across all different sources where your business is listed. Make sure that you have photos and categories listed and description about your business, and get reviews. I think that the big thing to remember when it comes to Google SEO in general is that it's all about relevance. And so the more content that you can create to show that you are relevant to somebody's search, the better chance you have of showing. So I think that, focusing on that is really going to help you win out over somebody else.
Kate's spot on. I think that everything she said is dead correct, and that's extremely important. One of the studies that I recently did actually was how the pandemic affected consumer behavior. Everyone's worried, talk so much about what retailers are doing. I focused a bit on how did consumers change their behavior because of it. And what's interesting is that I think it may have been Vegas. I don't know. Yeah, Vegas. I did a seminar, and at the time, I remember I had a slide up there that said 8% of consumers said that they would like to shop online for furniture. Only 8%. There was a study done, I think, in November, and that 8% went up to 65% now. So make no mistake, people are shopping, but of that, 70% of the people said that they want to buy within about a 5-mile radius. So yeah, I'm comfortable adding it to cart, but I kind of want to do it with the person down the street who I know and I trust, and you know what I mean? So that's to Kate's point, it's huge to make sure that all that's in place.
Well, and you're both saying something that should be music to the ears of our retailers, because when we try to talk about the importance of brick and mortar, prior to this pandemic, there's been a huge push for the digital side of things. There's no doubt about that. But it's interesting that even with all these changes, there is this sense that the customers still want to have that comfort zone of being in the store. So you've got a real advantage here. So Kate, as we're talking about the local SEO portion of this whole thing, what are some of the, and I don't want this to sound negative, but I think we can kind of build from here. What are the mistakes that a lot of businesses make, or assumptions they make about what they're putting out online, and they might be missing a piece or two to really optimize their search engine optimization?
I think that one of the biggest things that I see missing from clients that I work with is reviews. People are not really soliciting reviews, and I think that there's a heavy weight on that. And it sounds maybe less obvious than getting your address and your phone number right, but I really think that making sure that you're reaching out to get that information is really what's going to help your relevance. But also, I think that people don't realize that when you set something up, it's not just set it and forget it. You have to continue to optimize and update content all the time. I mean, with Google My Business specifically, going back to that example, you can post updates there the same way that you would to your Facebook page or on Twitter. So make sure that you are updating your content, doing some keyword research, making sure that you constantly are aligned with what people are looking for and searching for, because what happened a month ago might not be exactly the same as what is happening this month, especially with all of the changes that are happening right now in online shopping behaviors.
Okay, Ken, jump on that a little bit, so explain that so that everybody's clear. By more content and being more active, how does that directly impact SEO?
Right. So content on a website. So and if one of the to go back to your question, what are some mistakes or things that are overlooked, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that people have a tendency to overlook local centric content on their website, right? So if I'm in Boston and I'm looking to target Boston, or if I'm looking to target, for those in that area, like maybe Natick or Framingham, some of the on areas, the ability to create a dedicate a page to furniture in Natick, right? Don't be shy to create a specific page on your site dedicated to a geographic area with content related to furniture or whatever that term might be that you want to go after, such as whether it's bedroom furniture, furniture store, outdoor furniture, whatever the case may be. But pick your topic, pick your location, and dedicate a whole page to it. Let Google see and digest it and equate that there's a geographic area with a topic, and let that be on your site. I think it's a big deal.
That's a huge takeaway, and one that I think we'll certainly note at the end of this discussion, because that really makes a heck of a lot of sense. Kate, you've been really making a point about reviews and how that really assists here. Reviews are also fraught with peril. There can be a negativity aspect to it as well, but how do those directly impact that SEO? What is it about that? Is it just because of the fact that your store is in the conversation? Is it the ranking? What are the things that are key there? Because not every review is the same as the next review.
Right. Yeah, I think it can be a handful of different things. I think that one, yes, Google will actually look at some of the content. So if it lists your location or the name of your store, it will contribute to the local SEO. But again, when it comes back down to relevance, the more content that you have that's written related to your own listing helps increase what Google sees as relevant. So that will increase your rankings as well. Both at a local level and just a general organic level.
I love what you say. Google recognizes it's like this big omnipresent thing, right? If Google isn't Google that, I mean, I guess it is, right? That's kind of the point. Ken, to kind of sort of put a bow on the SEO and the local piece and driving that traffic. Any anecdotal or otherwise, idea about how impactful it can be? I mean, I know that everything that a retailer does is multifaceted, but how much can just that attention really drive traffic to your store?
It's enormous. Right? They're projecting very, very soon, be it late this year, early next year, that over 50% of the Google searches that take place will end up displaying a local map section. So it'll be almost a local centric search in some manner, right? Whether that's restaurant near me, furniture store, Charlotte, you name it. And so when you take into consideration the volume of searches that take place every day, and to suggest that almost half of them are going to end up, when you run that search, and half of them you'll see a map with businesses to associate that to. Think of the scale of that and just how important it's going to be to have that presence. That's number one. Just pure volume is growing substantially. And I will say this, another level of importance is that, we've done with work that we've done for local SEO for clients, et cetera. We often will provide reports, and one of the reports might be on the Google My Business, the activity, right? So if somebody types in furniture store Charlotte, Ken's Furniture shows up. If a user clicks on that profile, your Google profile, and hits get directions, let's say, well, chances are they're not hitting directions because they're bored. You want to hit directions because you plan on going there. And so there's been times when I said to a client, look, last month you had 312 people click on directions. That means they didn't even go to your website. They literally came from the search directly to your store. So without even going to your website. So your website stats aren't even going to see that person. So that, again, it's going to continue to grow in importance, big time.
Okay. And before we leave the local part of it, Kate, I just want to ask you one final thing here as far as the things we're talking about. I always like I talk to retailers on a daily basis, and we're always trying to help their bottom line. I don't hear in this a lot of cost. There are certain aspects of it, but a lot of these things that you're talking about, improvements, are small things, detail things that can make a difference. Am I hearing that correctly, or am I underselling or overselling that, or is that correct?
No, that's absolutely true. It takes some time and some thought, and you should be intentional with the way that you put this together, but you're right, it doesn't cost anything.
So, but again, vigilance is what I'm hearing from both of you. And things it's got to be living and breathing. It can't just be static. And so I get that. Okay. By the way, I want to just re-mention to people that might just be joining us. We had a few people hop on just now. We're talking to Ken Widger with Micro D, and we're talking to Kate Gallagher from Phelps Digital. We're talking about search engine optimization, and we've got a lot to talk about here categorically, and then we're going to talk about some major algorithm changes coming up. But let's graduate now into SEO as far as driving web traffic. Ken, I thought it was so apt of you at the beginning of this, when the pandemic started. Anybody who wasn't in a lot of the digital channels or wasn't in far enough, there was a scramble. I mean, those first 60 days were like the Wild West. And so certainly there's more people today than there were a year ago who have online vocabulary, who maybe are transacting online, et cetera. So now let's talk about this. Let's talk about how that search engine optimization really can work well to drive traffic to that now more sophisticated website you might have.
Sure. I mean, I end up speaking to a lot of people who are, and when I ask them, what are you doing digitally right now in terms of any type of advertising or marketing, inevitably the first thing out of their mouth would be, well, I do Google ads, I do paid social ads, I do Facebook ads, and some they'll drop 5,000, 10,000, whatever amount of money a month on that. And then when I ask, well, how is the organic? How are you showing up? If you didn't pay for anything, how are you showing up? And well, it's awful, horrible. It's like, all right. So the goal there is to diversify that, because you don't want to be subject to you don't want to be at the mercy of what if Google decides to charge more per click because they feel like it, what are you going to do, right? They have you. And so I really want to stress the importance of SEO and ranking organically, not in the paid, but ranking in the organic section. And it takes time and it takes effort, but once you're there, you don't have to worry about paying per click. You don't have to. It's I don't want to say it's free, but it is, your ROI goes up just exponentially, because again, you're not paying for every single click there. And so to turn your attention to SEO is something I wish a lot of people did more of. And you wish you had started yesterday, type of thing.
Well, Kate, how do you do it organically versus just buying the Google ads, et cetera?
I think that it really just comes down to optimization of the content that you have on your page. And I mean, that's, a little bit of a loaded question, because there's code and images and layouts and all kinds of things that are going to impact that ranking, which I'm sure we can get into. But a lot of it really just comes down to making sure that you have the right content and keywords in the right places. And Ken's right. I mean, like the Google My Business part is free, but the SEO part, if you're a web developer or you specialize in doing SEO, then that is fantastic. But oftentimes, I think a lot of us here are working with SEO companies who provide these services, but they're well worth it.
There's a number of questions that have come in from folks taking part here relating to this whole thing. Let me just toss a few of these out, kind of open to both of you. What are some of the better ways to, quote unquote, they're saying optimize our website? What are some tips to optimize the website to really drive this traffic?
So I would say that, my top 2 or 3 are going to be updating your meta tags and title tags. And what I mean by that is the content that you have in the titles and the descriptions of your web page that show in a Google search result on that search result page, the SRP. So you want to make sure that the content and the keywords that you put in there are as relevant as they can be to the searches that you want them to show for. So you want your, your search and then your descriptions and then the content on the website to all match. And again, that all comes back to the whole idea of relevance. So updating those tags and descriptions is important. The content on your site, again, is really important. You need relevant words to the things that you want to show for. And there are a lot of different rules that we could get into about, how many times you want different keywords to show on your site, or where on the page you want it to show, how high up you want it to show. So there's lots of different ways to address that. And then also, I think that page speed, especially moving forward, is going to be really important. Making sure when we say things are optimized, make sure that file size are the right sizes, that it doesn't take too long for your page to load. So those are probably my top three. And again, I know that there's a lot more in the weeds there, but Ken, feel free to jump in. And
you're right. I'll piggyback a little bit. There's over 200 variables, algorithmically speaking, 200 variables. So, I don't know how much time we have on this webinar, but, and the challenge is over 200 variables have probably changed by the time I finish the last sentence. It's a moving target. So I think the better, and Kate did it eloquently, but attacking it from a high level core ideas, right? And Kate's absolutely right. First and foremost, your content, ensure that you're applying content in the right place. If you don't have a blog on your site, if you're not contributing monthly to a blog, writing articles, that's a biggie. You're probably not gonna have. You got a really long road ahead of you if you're not gonna put a blog and write content on a frequency, a decent frequency, maybe one a month at least, if not more. That's number one. Number two is something that's often overlooked is really pay attention to your keyword selection. What is it that you want to target in terms of topic and keywords? And I always instruct or advise, I say, folks to don't just go with your gut because you happen to own the business. It's that mentality of, well, I know I've been doing this 35 years. I know what people are looking for. Do you? Go to your staff, go to your salespeople, survey customers. What did you type in order to find when you were looking on Google? What were some of the phrases and terms that you typed in? There's short terms like furniture store, right? But then there's also conversational, because as people do, hey Google, hey Siri, right? When you say that, you speak conversationally. So all of a sudden that furniture store turns into, hey, what's the best furniture store in Charlotte? See how much longer that is. People overlook that stuff. So really pay attention to your keywords and what it is that people are utilizing. And there's keyword tools, by the way, free ones that will tell you how much volume keywords get. So pay attention to that. I think is a big starting point, and then do the content from there.
And I love the fact of also just, poll the audience sometimes. I mean, you could have some great feedback around you. It's not always have to be on a spreadsheet. Kate, a question came in as you were talking a second ago, and it's a good one. Is there, however, a line that you cross? Is there too much information that will not impact the rankings? Specifically, there was a retailer that sent a note and said, what about, all this thing we put in about dimensions and all these other descriptive items? Is there a point where there's too much?
I think that it's more a matter of thinking about the impact of the user experience as well. You don't want to just list a bunch of keywords 500 times, have it feel repetitive and not meaningful as they're reading through it. So yes, of course, you need to be conscious of, having a specific keyword that is important to you, maybe 3 to 5 times on a page, but have it within the context of the information that you're writing about in a way that makes sense. So I think that's probably a good rule of thumb to go by.
Okay. Ken, any thoughts on that as well? I mean, it's because the last thing that you want to have, that we want to convey is just, hey, throw it all in there. This is the more
Yeah.
content. I think that I like the fact that Kate helped here, but define that a little bit more so people understand sort of some of the parameters, or at least the suggestions.
For sure. So we're creeping a little bit into the what's coming down the road for Google. We're creeping a little bit into that, and that's okay though. But it'll be we're foreshadowing. Yeah, content, of course, is really important. You know, content is king has been something we all heard, and content has been consistently the biggest staple for Google, right? Hands down, it's the biggest thing. Now, that said, little nuances and variables are what changes with Google, right? How much content, what is the keyword density, what that's appropriate that Google looks for. Those are the things that kind of Google twists and tweaks the knobs on and dials, right? But it doesn't ignore the fact that content is still key for Google. So, you know, again, we'll get into this as we go, but Google's doing a better job of taking keywords in your content and picking up semantic keywords, terms that are similar, kind of reading between the lines, if you will. But again, that's to come.
So what I'm hearing you both say here is it's not so much how much, but what, and you know, and how you're presenting it. So you don't have to have a voluminous website to really find a good high SEO ranking. It's really more of a question of like a better term, quality of what you've got there that's going to make the difference. Kate, is that fair? I mean, because I don't want people just to think that more is always better and then just throw the kitchen sink at it.
I think that maybe somewhere in the middle is okay. I do think that the volume makes a difference. I think that the placement on the page can make a difference. But you know, you're right. You don't want to go overboard again to a place where it's not a good experience for your user. But if you have your location as Charlotte and you want to put Charlotte on your page to rank for Charlotte, and you have it listed once, you know, 3/4 of the way down the page, that's probably not going to cut it. So I do think that you need to pay attention to it, but again, you need to be thoughtful about the way it's put together.
And Kate, by the way, both you and Ken not only can, but you're encouraged to completely disagree with me. These are just questions that come to mind based on this and the questions we got coming in. And feel free to please push back. You're the expert. I am not. So we'll leave it at that. But let me ask you this: as we're talking about the whole issue about increasing web traffic. I'm assuming it's a lot of the same things we talked about with the in-store from the standpoint of reviews and things of that sort. Ken, are there any other nuances about driving people to a website versus to the store itself? You know, what are there really any nuances? Anything different between those two?
Well, I think that not really, and I say that not in a way where I gave up on the answer. I say it because I'm trying to think of the bottom line is when you're doing local SEO and you're showing up in that map section, I mentioned before, people sometimes even bypass the website, right? But I would never suggest to count on that, right? So the goal is, with the understanding that 99% of people who come to your showroom have come to your website first. We just know it. That's the case, right? Okay. Are there those outliers, and is there that opportunity to go for people to hit? Of course, and it's probably going to grow. But for now, we know that your online presence, the way you show up, I don't care if it's social media, I don't care if it's in Google search, I don't care, it doesn't matter, Bing, it doesn't matter. How you show up in paid ads, and that's all meant to drive people to your website. Make no mistake. I think that there can often be something misleading, though, and again, I know we'll probably touch on this in a little while. There can be something misleading. Kate and I just talking about it, that it's not a 1 + 1 = 2 automatically, right? It's a bring. We're going to bring the horses to the water. But once we're to the website, if they don't like what they see, it doesn't always just equate to leads automatically. Just bringing an extra 1,000 people a month doesn't mean you're going to get that many more leads. If your website is not good, then you're just bringing people there to leave.
Yeah, and Kate, you said a little bit earlier, consistency of message across all your platforms. It's all gotta match up. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Let me ask you one final thing in this little segment here, and Kate, I'll address this to you. Is so what are the things as far as whether it be the layout? You talked about this a little bit ago, but just remind us as far as, okay, so we're driving people to that website. doing that through all this optimization. So what are some of the basic keys that should be there on that website? What are the layouts? What are the things? Because this is a question that many people have said: is what should my layout be to make sure that I'm being noticed? Are there a couple of things that you can point us to?
On the website itself.
Yes.
Once we get there. Well, I think that you know, at the top, it's always good to have, I mean, you got to think about how things appear on mobile and desktop. So that's really important to consider your images. But I think that we see a lot of success with websites who have an image that's something simple to see and understand that people like, then some content to explain a little bit more about what you're looking at and what you can get to help you understand, you know, explain what's going on. And then clear call to actions are incredibly important. And again, I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more, but I think that if you have good images, simple, straightforward, easy to understand content that makes it, you know, clear to people what they're getting, and then your call to actions is probably a good place to start.
And I want to remind people that this is our weekly webinar, and we're talking about search engine optimization with Ken Widger of Micro D and Kate Gallagher from Phelps Digital. And we've worked our way through a couple of these areas that we want to touch on today, and we're going to lead into in just a few minutes here about some changes that everybody on this call needs to be aware of coming through Google, so that you can properly be prepared and react to that. But the one other area we wanted to kind of jump into a little bit more in depth is true lead optimization. And Ken, can you talk a little bit about that? Because you know, that to me is, you know, the first two aspects we talked about have been driving people, you know, specifically in store and then on your website. And the lead optimization has, I think, a few more tentacles to it. Can you talk a little bit about how SEO plays into that lead optimization and ways that the retailers listening can take advantage?
Sure. Well, SEO traffic, any traffic, whether it comes from SEO or whether it's somebody coming to you through social media or an email marketing, all the traffic is going to want to see what it was that they clicked upon. So, you know, if you're sending someone, for example, if I run a search for bedroom furniture, Charlotte, right? If you're optimizing your bedroom furniture page or doing perhaps even one specific to Charlotte that I mentioned earlier, right? When I click on that as a user, I'm thinking that's kind of what I'm expecting to see, because that's what I typed in, that's what came up, so if all of a sudden I click on it and it just takes me to a page, even just the home page, which isn't the end of the world, but ideally you'd love to be able to take me to a page that's about bedroom furniture and about Charlotte, because it's now satisfying what it is that I was looking for, and it matches what my expectation. So that's a thing from an SEO standpoint. Now, just from a sheer conversion optimization, right? How to generate leads and the best practice on that front. You know, that's something altogether very, very dynamic, and it's very exciting actually, because there's ways to, I don't want to say manipulate, it's an ugly word, influence people's behavior once they hit the site, right? So for merchandising, a big mistake that I see a lot of retailers make, they spend countless hours, money, resources on their showroom, making sure that every square foot of that showroom is perfectly laid out. We have this where we want it to be. We have this, but yet they're on their website. It's just like a garage sale. There's no rhyme or reason. You have to merchandise your website just like the same way you would. If we're running a sale on Bernhardt, well then let's make sure that Bernhardt floats up to the top when people run. So if I click on bedroom furniture, I should see the Bernhardt first, because that's what I'm promoting. That's where the enticing is. I shouldn't have to go 8 pages deep on Bernhardt. That's so merchandising and giving people what they want to see is absolutely critical and often overlooked.
Kate, jump in on that, because that's a really interesting thought process that I'm not sure that every retailer thinks about.
Well, yeah, I think that when you talk about merchandising, I think that you know, there's two. I mean, really, I'm just playing off of what you're saying, Ken. I think that's a really important point. One, it's, you know, talking about what an offer or a price might actually look like, because at the end of the day, money is what really speaks, and we always see the best performance when it comes down to offers and saving $1. So once you get somebody to your website, you're right, if there is a sale or something, that should be highlighted, because that's going to get the most interaction. And then I think also when you get to the website, it's getting to where you want, or if they're not landing exactly where they want, make it simple for somebody to get there. So think about other ways to set up your website when it comes to, you know, your filters and your sorting and the way that you have information accessible on the pages to be able to navigate to somewhere that you're looking for in an easy way. So if it might be you're looking for just in stock furniture, or you're looking for clearance furniture, or whatever, you know, specific type of merchandising thing you're focusing on at that point in time, make it simple for people to get there regardless of where they are on the site.
Well, and that's, I mean, my gosh, you talk about, you know, what's in stock, maybe one of the most important questions right now that people have because of the supply chain issues. And so, again, I really like the intuitiveness of what you both said there, because again, what we're talking about here is truly not so much rocket science as much as the common sense of understanding what the customer today is looking for, and making it simple for them. So that to me is just, you know, that's the magic in this whole thing. Let's talk for a minute, and I know I do want to get to the changes in the algorithm in just a second, but there was a great question that came in that I wanted you guys to clarify, because you talked about organic and you talked about Google Ads as involved in all this. Ken, I'll start with you. You know, where is that balance? Is it, you know, should you be doing both? There's a lot of people I know of personally that are investing a lot in Google Ads. There's a lot that aren't.
Sure.
But give a feel for that, because that's a decision that a lot of store owners are trying to figure out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I by no means, I certainly don't want to suggest that it's either or. A proper strategy really employs both. It's really to what scale. In other words, what I was saying is that I speak to a lot of retailers that are only doing paid ads, and they're kind of ignoring the other part, and nor should you swing the other way. So I think the proper implementation of both is critical. The goal, though, I mean, you're going to start off, the reality is this, you're going to start off heavier on the paid side. Why? Because it's immediate. You can set up campaigns, you set it up on a Monday, by Tuesday your ads are showing up and you got some traffic coming in. Okay, fair enough. So very often you'll find yourself spending a little bit more on paid for 6 months, 8 months, whatever the case may be, while the SEO organic is really starting to take place, and your ranking is starting to improve, and all of a sudden once your ranking starts to improve into the organic section, and you're getting some traffic from that, then that's when you can start to become a little more conservative on you don't have to throw as much money towards paid now all of a sudden, right? This is starting to gear up, you can bring this down. And that is the overall strategy, because ultimately you'd want that balance to shift a little bit more this way, right? Where the organic is driving 80–90% of your traffic, because that your ROI is going to be a heck of a lot better on that. And then maybe you're just using paid for campaigns. Like we have clients that really won't do paid too much, and if they do on a monthly basis, they'll just throw money at it for a short time because there's a sale happening, 4th of July sale, and they'll so it's almost like a campaign. It's a blast,
right?
But then it's over when they move on, right? And so yeah, you have to have both. It's just how you use it. It is the benefit.
Yeah. And I would add too, I think that a lot of times when you're optimizing your site for SEO, it actually also benefits your SEM. Because again, SEM oftentimes performs best based on relevance. So if you have the right content in your page and the right keywords in your search terms and in the URLs that you are taking people to, it's all connected. So even if you are running a paid campaign and you're optimizing for that, you're probably improving your SEO as well. So I think that it's really important to think about how those two work together in one large ecosystem. I'm a huge proponent of paid ads, but I do think that it really depends on your market and your competition, and there are a lot of things that are going to factor into how much you might need or want to spend there. But I think that, you know, when Ken talks about ROI, it's very true that your organic traffic is the best traffic. It's really interesting. If you look in analytics and you compare your sources of traffic to your website, you will typically find that your organic is the best performing traffic. It has the lowest bounce rate, the highest time on site, most pages per session, converts the best. So if you can optimize to get more of that traffic, it really will have the best ROI for you. That's what we use as our benchmark for every other campaign that we run.
Since you brought it up, there was a question here, and I'm going to confess that I would have asked it if it wasn't here. What is the difference between SEO, search engine optimization, and search engine marketing? What is the real difference here? Just so people understand and we can raise their vocabulary, or at least raise mine before this is out there.
Money, paying for the ads versus not. The SEO is where you're just working on your content and you know, optimizing the page itself and your, you know, quote unquote no cost investment strategy. And SEM is the, you know, PPC. It's pay per click, Google Ads. That's all synonymous. That's the difference, paying for the ads.
Yeah, paid versus non-paid is exactly right, 100%. And you know, SEM consists of everything that you pay to play, whether it's pay-per-click, social media paid, media buying on sites, things that you actually just write a check for. That's SEM.
And a great question just came in, and Ken, I'll throw this one at you. How do I know? This is a business owner talking. How do I know how well I'm doing with my SEO? I mean, what are the ways that they know? Best ways to benchmark. Also, you know, this is another mention here, says, how do I know versus the person across the street kind of a thing? What is your response to that?
Yeah, it's tricky because you're at that point, we often see people comparing themselves to other retailers, even perhaps in different markets and things of that nature, and that's troublesome to do, right? You know, if I have a store in Miami and a friend of mine has a store in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, those are two very different markets. And so for me to gauge what I'm doing in terms of how I rank and this and that versus them can be troublesome. I think it's less about how do I compare. It's more about what is the progression of my exposure. So that's what you're really looking for. You want to be able to see that, all right, I'm starting my efforts. Here's my baseline. Right now, I don't rank for anything, right? Maybe I rank for my name. That's about it, because most people do, okay?
Right.
But I really don't rank for anything significant. All right, in 3 months, in 6 months, in 9 months, I'm going to then take a snapshot, and the benchmark is my baseline. Really, it's very difficult to say here's where I'm going to get. It's, am I seeing progression? Am I ranking for more? Am I getting more is my traffic going up by 10%, 20%, 30%? And really see if that progression is happening, you're on the right track. It's really tough to say, to put out there, I want my organic traffic to be up 80% in the next year. It's tough to say, but I think that you really should focus more on the progression of it, and ramp it up.
And that's spoken like somebody who said that. I have a feeling to a client or two who's asked that question. Kate, do you get that question as well? I mean, is that something that people try to quantify, and it's not real easy to quantify?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that Ken hit the nail on the head with that. I think that what we tend to do is just do test searches, constantly look for how you're performing, look for yourself, see what your competition is doing. And if you find that your competition is really outperforming you in certain areas, that might help you figure out ways to focus in on and apply different strategies. But I don't think that there's really a great way to understand unless you try to experience it yourself.
Okay. And back to SEM for a second, Ken, is there any best practice for the percentage of my marketing dollars that I'm putting toward my Google ads, et cetera, or has that just been so blown up by the last year that it's hard to even really get your arms around that, or is there even a suggestion you'd have for a retailer?
Sure. Well, but from a budgetary standpoint, I think it's less about the allocation to pay, let's say to SEM, and more really just focusing. Just go take it up one level. What am I applying to digital marketing as
Okay.
kind of as a whole, right? As a bigger bucket, right? And so, 2019, 2020, on average, I remember the article here, but on average, the average furniture retailer across the country was spending between 4 and 6% of their revenue on advertising as a whole. All right,
Okay.
so 4 to 6% of all their revenue went to advertising. Now, within that advertising world, that's where things shift, because it used to be, okay, I have my overall marketing advertising budget. I'm doing billboards, I'm doing mailers, I'm doing this, and maybe I'll spend 15% of that towards digital, 20%. That's the shift that we've seen. We've seen people now are getting up towards 50% of their entire advertising budget going towards digital, and we see that consistently, and it's really a recommended percentage. I don't say that because that's my world, but that's the reality of
Sure.
what we're seeing.
Well, and I think one of the key things you just said too is we got to remember this whole SEO conversation. It should be part of a larger digital strategy and not a one and done kind of a situation.
And the reason that I don't go a layer lower to go granularly in terms of, well, okay, of that 5,000 a month or whatever that number is, of that you should put this here, is because that is not a consistent number across the board. That depends on every single retailer, where they are now, what they've been doing. That's independent and individual, but the percentage overall is
that can change campaign to campaign also, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. This can be different every time you do it. So just to remind everybody, we're coming in our last 14 minutes here. Ken Widger's joining us from Micro D and Kate Gallagher from Phelps Digital. Kate, I'm going to start with you. Let's get to the headline news here. So Google, which has, I don't know how many times they've changed their algorithm. I mean, you probably have lost track. Let's talk about these changes. We know they're coming up, and we want to make sure that the people listening to this are ready for any changes. So what are we talking about?
All right. Well, I mean, Ken, feel free to jump in here at any point. I think that, I mean, there's a lot going on here. I think that, previously, like we said before, the main focus for Google was relevance. So it all came down to content and keywords and structure. A lot of it now is going to still be about relevance, but it's also going to include user experience. So it's how do people interact with your site, and how well does your site create a good experience for that user? So there are going to be 3 main things that I think people are talking about that really are going to be impacting this ranking. One is going to be page load time. Another is going to be how quickly is your site interactive. So it's not just how long does it load, but how long does it take for a button to become clickable or for the page to be scrollable. And then also visual stability. I'm sure that everyone has experienced the type of thing where you go to a page and you think it's loaded, and then all of a sudden another image appears and everything kind of shifts around. So keeping the time that those adjustments happen down is going to be really important. So I think that those are like the big 3 things. You got to think about mobile friendliness, security, safe browsing. But all of that is going to impact how a user interacts with your site. So I think that one of the big fears is that this is going to blow everything up. And I don't really think that it's going to blow everything up overnight. I think that the impact is probably going to be felt over time. And really I think that what initially it's going to come down to is if you have a site that is identical to somebody else's content-wise, they are both eligible to rank for the #1 position. But if their page loads half a second faster, now they're going to outrank you. So I think it's going to be kind of something like that, rather than you're going to all of a sudden drop to page 100.
Right. So this is now really the sophistication of your page. That's the word I would use. So best way to prepare, Ken, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like with what Kate's talking about is the best way to prepare is to make sure that your site is responsive in all aspects. Is that fair?
Yeah. I'll just kind of expand on that a bit. So first and foremost, the mobile first indexing is really in play, which means everything that Google, keep in mind that the bottom line for Google right now is kind of user experience. It's people first, right?
Right.
And so Google has gone from crawling your desktop site to really it's going to be the first thing they're going to do is look to your mobile. Is your mobile user friendly? The navigation, the visuals, the content, everything else, right? And then so it's mobile first analysis or indexing, right? So that's something to keep in mind. So if you don't have a responsive site, if you don't have a site that's very friendly, you're going to immediately be behind the 8 ball, right? So, and secondly, these upcoming updates, Google, make no mistake, Google's constantly making updates to the algorithm, little tweaks, okay? But every so often they make larger scale ones, and I think that's really what's coming. You're going to hear some, and some of them have cute names, like panda, penguin, hummingbird, all these, they code name these things, right? And so you're going to hear some. You might hear Smith, you might hear Bert, and those are ones that are coming down the pipe. And really, so we have mobile friendly indexing, people first approach, and let me kind of, Mark, throw a little bit of a monkey wrench in what you said earlier, but we're finding that the length of content does play a role in this. We're seeing that because ultimately what Google wants to digest is plenty of content, but it has to be written in a user-friendly way. And what Google is ultimately going to be rewarding, or let's say lending more weight to, is a better way to put it, is what's called dwell time. Which is synonymous with page stickiness or time on page. So right. The longer the dwell time on average of a page, the better. And from Google's perspective, what creates that is longer content that's engaging people. It's content that people want to see, okay, and read. Now here's the tricky part, and Kate nailed it earlier. As I said, it's going to be coming. Is nothing is worse than going to a page and seeing 1,000 words, paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. As a matter of fact, if you do that, if you just write 1,000 words in Word and copy and paste it onto a page, it's actually going to work against you because your dwell time is going to stink. People are going to hit that page and say, "Oof, I don't want to read all this," and they're leaving, right? And so that's where page content formatting and design comes into play. So be creative with how you present that content. Put in imagery to ensure that it captures maintains the interest of the user, but also, and we've all seen it, you can do accordion content, right? So maybe maybe these 2 paragraphs, the topic is leather furniture in Charlotte. When I click on it, it expands and opens up to reveal the paragraph, the text. You see, we've all seen that type of effect, right? That's a great way to disguise. It makes 1,000 words of content to a user look like there's only maybe a couple hundred, but there's actually, Google's still reading all of it, but it's not so overwhelming for a user. So there's accordion, there's tabbed content. There's lots of ways creatively from a design that you can hide and make it not look so daunting.
Man, I mean, this is pretty formidable change. And again, you hope most people have already instituted, an awful lot of this, but, Kate, what are your concerns about this for the retailers out there?
I think that getting the content right on the pages is going to be hard. I think that one of the things that I've seen on a lot of pages that can slow down the load time is that on inventory pages, there are too many images. They might not be sized correctly, which actually slows down the load time as well. So I think that people need to go in and make sure that, again, they have the right words to be engaging and keep people on the site and be clear about what's going on and what, directives to do next. But make sure that the elements that you have on the page are set up to be interactive on mobile and be sized, have those files sized properly so they don't slow anything down.
Yeah, because I mean, when I think about that, and and you both have done a great job of trying to frame it, but this whole issue about content, the amount of, and what's going to keep them there and what may drive them away. It's a pretty fine line. I mean, so it's going to be a little bit of trial and error. It sounds like. I mean, there's not like a magic pill here, right, Ken? I mean, you're going to have to be the #1 consumer of your site, because this sounds really like these changes are going to require you to be on every aspect of this.
Yeah, you shouldn't, exactly. This goes back to what I said earlier about people treating their website with the level of importance and significance that they do their own showroom. And that level of attention to detail and time, it's not, I'm going to spend 89% of my time on my showroom, and then when I get around to it, I'll deal with the website. That's gonna bury you very quickly. And so as a quick tip, when you're writing content pages, make sure, and Kate, you said it earlier, I just wanted to put a refresher out there. Whatever that topic or theme or keywords that you're targeting, try and get that into the top couple paragraphs, towards the top of the, to register the level of importance so that Google can pick that up. Bert and Smith and these algorithms, these code names are really AI based, and they're really meant to be, it's almost like in verbal communication. If I started talking to you and then I kind of said to you, hey, read between the lines. You know what I'm saying, right? You just read between the lines. That's kind of what Google's doing, is it's picking up what you're trying to say, even though you may not be exactly writing it. It's picking up the essence of it too, which is kind of cool. And so it allows you to write friendlier content.
So you have to be aware of nuance now on top of everything else.
You don't have to worry about stuffing keywords in that much anymore. You can write more naturally. I think that's going to be favorable.
Wow. This has been huge. What I want to do right now, if we could, as we're winding down here, is there has been a number of really important takeaways today. Let me just kind of go through here, and I'll let the two of you tell me what we missed here, but let me kind of go through what our team has really heard loud and clear. First of all, we need to talk about the fact that the desire to shop for furniture online increased from 8% to 65% of consumers, with 75% wanting to purchase within a 5-mile radius. Hello, local retailer. Soon, over 50% of Google searches will show localized results. That's important for the corner store. Optimizing your Google My Business listing will increase your visibility on Google Maps, which again is an important way for getting people to find out where you are. Reviews carry a heavy weight with both consumers and your SEO performance. So if you've been veering away from reviews, I know that there's so many retailers I've talked to that are concerned about them, because, well, they can be bad reviews as well, but you're going to have to dive into the pool at some point. Consider improving your local SEO by creating a landing page with content specific to your geographic area. That was a huge thing that we heard that I thought was really interesting. And you're basically saying, have a page that's got to speak to local. That's going to be great. Top tips for improving SEO: update your meta and title tags. Identify keywords your consumers are using and include them in your site's content. I love that it said your consumers are using. That's important. Include a blog and update frequently, and optimize your page speed. We just talked about that too. And great images, simple to understand content, and calls to action are all critical elements. We've got a few more. This has been a great program. Invest time to merchandise your website just as you would the brick and mortar location, making sure you highlight any current promotions. Like Ken said, you focus on every square inch of your store. Do the same thing with your website, and that's something Kate talked about too. You got to be a consumer of your site, not just the person behind the scenes. Organically driven traffic is most often the best performing, which is good to know. And 4 to 6% of revenue has been the average spend for marketing. 15% of that spent on digital. That has shifted to be closer to 50%. I don't think that's a surprise. And also, Google's upcoming changes are going to focus on the user experience, requiring you to fine-tune your page and ensure it's responsive and speedy, and most important, that it is mobile friendly first and foremost. Wow. Whew. You guys have set the record. That's the most takeaways from an HFA webinar in the past year. Holy mackerel, this was great stuff. No, listen, we have just another minute here. Real quickly, Kate, I'll start with you. Final comment or takeaway for the folks that joined us today.
I would say, be conscious of your updates, be intentional about what you put in, and don't do it one time and let it sit. Constantly be looking at it and be looking at what's changing so that you can stay ahead of the changes.
Ken?
I'll flow right with Kate, along with Kate saying SEO is not a project. It's not something that you start, stop, and then walk away saying, okay, I did my SEO. Hope, now it's going to work. No. It's recurring. It's ongoing. It's frequent, and that's usually the time where people say, go from I do it myself to I might need help from a professional who can do it on an ongoing basis, right? Just because people wear a lot of hats. So it's not a one-time deal by any means.
Well, Ken and Kate, I want to thank you so much for your time today and your insight and your leadership in this subject. And I think it's important for me to point out that this is one of the many benefits of membership here at HFA, is not only webinars like this, but you have the chance to interact with some incredible partners, and Phelps Digital and Micro D are just two of many. So think about membership in HFA, because we're working every day, our team is, to bring more value to you and to help your bottom line. Today was a perfect example. Once again, Ken and Kate, thank you very much. For the rest of you, we hope good health, good business, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.